So this video is going to go over the calculator functions on the TI-89. So when we turn it on, the on button on the bottom there, okay, it'll bring up your home menu. And we're looking for the item that says stats/list editor. Okay, if you can't find that, you're going to need to load it onto your calculator, which I haven't done, so I can't provide instructions for, but I've heard it's not too complicated. So go to TI's website. There's a piece of software. All right, you'll need that cord that connects it to the computer via USB, and you'll have to install that stats list editor. All right, now the first thing, actually before we do anything else, let's hit this diamond button here, and then the top left button that says F1. All right, we just want to make sure all of these items are empty. Okay, if they're not empty, if we see something in here, maybe like a 5x, all right, we want to just clear it out. All right, so it's not trying to graph anything when we're trying to do these stats things. All right, I'm going to hit the apps button to go back to stats list editor. Okay, and make sure you're not picking data matrix editor, that's different. All right, so stats list editor, and I'm going to hit enter on that. Okay, it's going to bring up the screen here, and I'm going to hit escape because it's not important. All right, now I put in some numbers already just so you don't have to see me type them all in. All right, so your list 1 is probably empty. So actually, let me move these over to list 2 to get them just out of the way here. So ignore this. This is important. Okay. By the way, if there's anything in your lists and you need to clear it, you can highlight the list title, list 1, hit the clear button, and then hit the down arrow. It'll erase all of them. All right, when we put numbers into the list, the biggest mistake, or the most common mistake I should say, is that you try to put them into the list title. So we don't want to be on that list 1. We don't want that to be highlighted. We want it to be right underneath it. Okay, now I'm looking at, off to the side here, the Unit 1 Calculator Instructions worksheet. Okay, that should be in your packet. And on that worksheet, there's a long string of 40 numbers. We're just going to put them in. Okay, we're putting all 40 into one list, even though it's separated into 2 columns on the ditto just to save some space. So we type the first one, 69.7, we hit enter. We type the next one, 66.5, we hit enter again. Each time we hit enter, it jumps to the one right below it so we can put in the next one. All right, and when we get through all of them, we'll have what we have in list 2 here, all right, which is 40 numbers from that worksheet. Okay, when you get to the end, just to make sure you haven't skipped any, your last one should say list 2 with 40 in those square brackets there, all right, with 41 item being empty. All right, so I'm going to switch those back over to list 1. You can ignore this part. We're going to get to that in just a minute, and I'm going to clear list 2. All right, so our calculator should look the same once you have all those numbers, everything in list 1, all 40 numbers. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to find the statistics, the summary statistics on these values. All right, so to do that, if you look up the menus up here, all right, we see a bunch of options: tools, plots, list, calc, distribution. All right, these can be accessed using the function keys. All right, eventually we'll need to get to ones like F6 and F7, which you can see are in blue up here, F6 and F7, so you would hit the second key first, and then that function key. So the one we want right now is F4, the calc menu. Okay, so when we click that, it brings down this menu, and we're going to pick the very top item, one variable stats. All right, so hit enter on that. Now yours is probably blank, so I'm going to clear this out. Okay, and we want to link it to that list 1. All right, so that list of numbers that we just did. So we're going to hit the second key, okay, which is that blue button up top. Right, and then I'm going to hit the minus key. Okay, and you can see right above that minus key it says var link, for variable link. All right, and this brings up a list of everything in our calculator, and we're going to look for where our data is, okay, which is in list 1. So we see list 1 here. We're going to hit enter. And that's all we need to do. Now we're just going to hit enter a couple more times. All right, and when we do that, it'll pop up these summary statistics. So in these summary statistics, it tells us the mean X bar. Okay, these we can ignore for now. S sub X is the standard deviation of our sample, 2.582. Okay, sample size is the N. Okay, if I hit the down arrow, We'll see it as a few other things, like we'll see the quartiles in there, the minimum, the maximum, the median. All right, so it gives us a bunch of information about our distribution. All right, so try that, get some practice with it. The other thing that we can be asked to do is to make some kind of display. All right, so to do that, we're going to go to the plots menu. Okay, now everything is done in this stats list editor. Okay, so I'm going to hit F2 for plots, and it brings down this menu. And the first item in that menu is plot setup. I'm going to hit enter on that. All right, so now we want to define a plot, and we see some new options up here. Okay, F1 is define plot. If you have plots in here that you want to get rid of, which you probably shouldn't, you can highlight them and hit F3 to clear them out. All right, so I'm going to hit F1 to define the plot. All right, and it's going to ask what type of plot are we trying to make. Okay, let's start with a histogram. Okay, so we're going to the histogram. All right, go down to this next menu option. It says X. We're going to point it to our data. So in this case, we're going back to list 1. So we're going to do it the same way we did before. We hit the second button. Right, and then once we do that, we hit the minus key for the variable link. Right, and we go down to list 1. Okay, so that'll populate list 1 there. You can also just type that, at least most of the time. Sometimes that doesn't work, and I don't know why. All right, but using variable link always works. All right, hit enter. Okay, this creates the plot. To actually view the plot, we want to graph it. Okay, and we can see graph up here above F3. So hit that diamond button, that green diamond. All right, and then F3 to graph it. All right, so a lot of times you'll see this where it's just an empty graph. All right, and that's because we're zoomed out too far. We want to zoom into the data. We're going to hit the F2 key for zoom. Right, that's the menu option up top, and we're going to go down, 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 down until we see zoom data. It's number 9. You can just hit the number 9, right, and that'll bring up that histogram. Okay, we make all these plots the same way. So if we go back into our stats list editor, whoops, that wasn't right. It was. All right, back into plots, F2, plot setup. All right, I'm going to clear this one out with F3, and this time I'm going to make a box plot. Okay, so I changed that to box plot, link it to variable, to list 1 again, so I hit second, and then that minus key to get into variable link, enter, diamond key, and graph. All right, and we see our box